Hey, so in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to write a chord progression, and this is going to be especially useful if you have no idea about music theory. You want to write your chord progressions, but when anybody mentions chords or keys or sharps or flats or major or minor or any of those things, your mind goes blank, or there might be like some big gaps in your knowledge, but that shouldn't be something that stops you being able to write your chord progressions. And what I'm going to show you today is hopefully going to give you a bit of a shortcut to writing your own chord progressions. I'm also going to say that what I'm going to show you today, I've chosen a genre, I've written a little bit of a demo to show you the ideas, but all of these principles work in all genres. So if you're writing house or trap or hip hop or whatever you're writing, chord progressions are chord progressions. So the ideas in this will transfer over to your tunes. I'm also doing it in Logic, but I'm going to be using the piano roll, and hopefully if you're using other programs such as Cubase or Ableton, you're going to be able to look at what I'm doing and work out how to do it on your software as well. Give you a little glimpse of what we're working towards today. This is the chord progression I kind of knocked together to show you guys the principles. So there you go, that's the chord progression we're working with today. Now, there is one thing that's going to help you out, and it's a handout that I've put on my website, and there's a link to it in the description below. But this handout is going to really help you out with what we're going to do today. It's called Chord Encyclopedia. And the first page of it is kind of a how-to guide. It tells you what you're looking at and how to use this guide. But the more interesting thing down the bottom here is that what I've done is I've taken every major key for all the white notes and all the minor keys, and I've planned out on any page the scale of that key and the chords that you're allowed to use in that key. So this one's A major, so that's the scale of A major, and these are the chords that you can use in A major. The first thing you need to do when you're writing a chord progression is you're going to need to choose a key. And for the sake of doing today's little example, I've chosen the key of C minor. Major keys are the ones that sound a little bit more upbeat and uplifting. Minor keys are the ones that sound a bit more darker, a bit sadder, if you will. But we're going to choose C minor. There's no reason I chose it. I just wanted to choose one to show you. And when you get to the page, it's going to be split up into two halves. The top half is going to have the scale of C minor. And if somebody asks you what the scale of C minor was and you didn't have any musical theory knowledge, your mind is going to go blank. You might not even know what a scale is or how to put one together. But what I've done is I've written out the notes in C minor. These are like E flat here, A flat and B flat. And if you turn your head to kind of sideways, you can kind of see how these notes match up with the notes on a keyboard. And in Logic, the light grey lines match up to white notes and the dark grey lines match up to black notes. So you can kind of see the scale you're going to be using for bass lines and melodies. But today we're interested in this bottom part here, which is the chords that you can use in the key of C minor. These are not unbreakable rules. The better you get at writing chord progressions, the more you understand it, the more you're going to be able to bend some of these rules and even break some. But for starting off, I cannot stress this strongly enough, but you're going to stick with these chords here. If you start mixing and matching chords from different keys, it's going to sound very messy very quickly. So I'm going to stay in C minor. And what I've done is I've written out the chords that you can use in C minor. And the idea behind this is that you do not need to know the music theory. You don't need to spend years studying keys and chords and clefs and staves and writing out notes, I've kind of done the hard work for you and given you a little bit of a shortcut here. So how does this work? Well, say you wanted to write your chord progression and start off with the chord of C minor, because it's the kind of root chord in the key of C minor. Here is the notes that you're interested in. Now, each of these chords is split up into two bits. There's the red notes and there's the green notes. The red notes, I've put them in red because they are important. You cannot miss these out. If you're going to write a chord of C minor, you absolutely need all three of these red notes in. If you don't have all three of those red notes in, it's not really a chord of C minor. And these red notes, if you follow them over, you've got C, you've got E flat here, and you've got G. And what these two green notes are on the top, and we're going to be looking at these more in the second half of this video, are chord extensions. And again, you don't need to know where they come from, you just need to know that you can use them. And the idea is that you can write these three red notes, and if you would like, you don't have to use them at all, but if you want to, you can either choose that bottom one or the top one, or even both, and they're going to make your chords sound really interesting and spicy. So how to write a chord progression. Chord progressions, if you didn't know, kind of are grouped together in 4 and 8 bar blocks. Usually what you do is you write 3 or 4 chords, and you would repeat that progression to get to 8 bars. So what I'm going to do today is write a chord progression of 3 chords and create an 8 bar chord sequence. I'm going to see how that's going to look on the page. So my chord sequence, you can literally choose any of these chords to create your chord sequence. Your chord sequence, if you're in a particular key, it kind of sounds good to start your chord progression out with the first chord in that key, but it's not like a real deal breaker. So you can start it with other chords, but for the sake of just showing you exactly how this works, I'm just going to choose these first 3 chords. So my chord progression is going to go C minor, E flat major, F minor. So once you've chosen your chords, and you can mix and match, use your ears and see what sounds good, you're going to program these 3 chords in. So what you do is you go back to your software, and I've created some synths in Logic already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little pencil tool. I'm going to draw myself in a little blank space there, a little 4 bar block, and here it is in the piano roll. If I move this across, then we should be able to see them both at the same time. So what I'm going to do is choose a nice range for it to be at. Chords, you want them kind of nice and in the middle. If they're too high up, they get a little bit piercing. If they're too low down, they get very muddy and they kind of cross over with your bass line. So what I'm going to do is program in these notes in C minor. So the first note in C minor is C. So program that in there. Second one is an E flat, which is there. And the third one is a G, which is there. Now from a second chord, it's going to be this E flat major. So the first note is this one, which is a E flat. The second note is a G, which is here. And third note is a B flat, which is here. And just to make it sound interesting, I'm going to have this first chord last twice as long as the other 2. And the F minor chord here, we've got this note here, which is F. This one here, which is A flat. And this one here, which is C. So hopefully we've got the little chord sequence. And the trick is, if you choose a nice synth and you get it working for you, and you actually look through your software, you might find that it sounds satisfying on its own without any extra bits in. Obviously, we're going to make it sound more interesting in the second part of this video, but at the moment it sounds alright. And if I steal this little bit of drums from over here, stick it in. That sounds alright. I'm going to copy that twice. And I've got a little 4-bar chord sequence here. I'm also going to steal this bass line here, and the bass line is the simplest thing you can possibly do. I've just put in the bass notes. For each chord. So for the C chord, I've put C in the bass, E flat chord, E flat in the bass, and for the F chord, I've put F in the bass. So even just that sounds quite satisfying. That's pretty cool. What you can do as well is you can muck around with some of these chords. So here we go. So what I've done here is I did the first chord for twice as long as the other two. There's no reason behind that, I just thought it might sound quite nice. You could do it the other way around. So you could have the second chord to be twice as long. It's completely up to you, but for the sake of this one, I'm going to stick with what I did before. The other thing just to mention, just before I kind of end this first part of the video, is that it's worth checking if anything at this stage sounds a bit off. Sometimes it's because you've made a mistake when you've been programming the notes on. So say this one in the middle here, I'd accidentally programmed in the wrong note. Actually, that sounds quite good, actually. It's a mistake. Let's put that one there. That last chord doesn't sound quite right. So what you do is you just go back and just double check that you put those 3 notes in the right place. And then you would hopefully notice that that one should be there and not there. So that's it for the first part. We've got our little chord sequence. In the second part, we're going to look at how to make the sound more interesting, ways of orchestrating it and spreading it out, adding extra notes, and using different synth and arpeggiators to really get this working for us.